Hello everyone, welcome to another fun-packed episode of Stockbridge Works. I am your flamboyant florist, Peter Stockbridge. And we are continuing our enemy poster sketch with Jake Gyllenhaal. This is episode 3. And we are continuing on with the cityscape that's in Jake Gyllenhaal's mind. As a reminder, I've not seen this movie, and this request comes from a lovely chap over at Every Shot a Painting on Instagram. He does some wonderful film stills. He plucks out really beautiful mise-en-scènes from very highly notable movies and very picturesque shots, very carefully thought out as well. I've been through his postings and I just absolutely adore some of his choices. We spoke about putting film stills on the wall, and he asked me what I would put up on the wall, and I sort of, essentially said straight away off the bat, well, it's Blade Runner 1 and 2. That's the first sort of, thing that comes into my head. But the issue is, what stills, right? What shots do you choose? And I mentioned that I wanted to choose shots that meant something to me. I didn't necessarily want to choose shots that were obvious, like the ones that everyone goes for. But at the same time, there is a majesty in some of those popular stills, If you've seen the movie, then you'll know that some of the popular stills of Deckard, who is played by Harrison Ford, who's hanging on the edge of the building and about to sort of plummet to his doom. And then there's another one that's at the end of the film, and it's with his partner Kay. Sorry, not Kay. I've forgotten the guy's name. The guy who does origami in the first one. There's a shot of him, standing by the police car, waiting to sort of pick him up, essentially, after the whole battle at the end. He comes out with a really, really beautiful statement, which is, "It's too bad she won't live, but then again, who does?" And that sentence just resonated with me so much. Who lives, who does live, and what does living actually mean? What is it all about? It's so nice to have something so profoundly prophetic towards the end of a science fiction film, which essentially deals with the notions of what is real and how do we classify a living being. With our advancements in robotics and artificial intelligence, are we inadvertently creating life? Are we essentially heading into something that we have no authority in? And when I say authority, I mean not just permission, but do we know what we're doing? Do we understand the consequences? And there's been quite a few films that have sort of given us a few scenarios, shall we say, on the possible sort of outcomes of it all. Things like Terminator and so on and so forth. But anyway, it's such a beautiful couple of films, Blade Runner 1 and 2. And so choosing a still, or three stills, because I said that I would have three stills from each film. Choosing stills from the first one is going to be a lot more difficult than it is from the second one, I think. I don't really have much of a clue at the moment about the first one, but the second one, I can pretty much say that one of the stills that I want in there is of the daughter, of Deckard's daughter, creating things in that that sort of building that she's housed in. I definitely want something from there, but I'm not exactly sure on the other two, but I do know I want that at the least. I love science fiction, I love fantasy, I love daydreaming and imagining a better world. I was always a daydreamer, man. I'd always just sort of stare out of the fucking window during class. I was just not willing to learn anything that anyone wanted to teach me, I just felt awful at school. I was always like, very much quiet and didn't want to be bothered by anyone. I was always a daydreamer, and I'm proud. I am proud of that. So working on these buildings is incredibly difficult. It's proving to be a lot more difficult than I I won't say initially anticipated, because I was quite fearful initially, and I'm not sure what it is, but I think it could be just, I don't know. It could be just that I'm having a very grey day today. My stress levels are slightly increasing. I'm worried that this isn't really going to come out right, and I really desperately want it to. I'm worried that I won't finish it in time. I'm worried that, I won't do everything else that I've got to do this month. I'm just full of worry at the moment. But I hope everyone else is doing okay. I hope everyone else is happy and at peace with themselves at the moment. Christmas is just around the corner. It's one of my favourite times of the year. I do like Christmases, even though the past few have been kind of fairly mediocre for me. I do love it. There's always been a special place in my heart for Christmases. And I prefer to do it traditionally more than anything else. In our family, we open our Christmas presents after lunch on Christmas Day. We don't do it in the morning, which I think is better. I much prefer that. I've always liked that. We have tried it, I think, once or twice, and it's not, it's not something I enjoy. It's like, no, save it. I think it's just, because I'm used to it. And it's a great excuse to watch your favourite Christmas movies, For me, it's Home Alone. It's let's see, Muppets Christmas Carol. Things of that nature. Possibly even Goonies as well. I don't feel I can do much advice giving or teaching during this, certainly during this episode. Just because I really I don't know what I'm doing. This is completely alien to me. As I've mentioned in a previous episode, I've not really attempted to draw a massive buildings like this before. So this is sort of, it's a fresh new experience for me. I'm in uncharted territory. Having to sort of make sure that I keep lines straight as well, that's a bit stressful too. But I'm enjoying it. This is just me sort of nitpicking, like I am enjoying this a lot, and it's a learning process for me. And how I feel at the time is largely irrelevant, because it's the lasting impression. It's how I leave it. And I think how I'm going to treat this is I'm going to do what I can here. I think I get most of it done, the bulk part of it done in this episode. And at some point I'm definitely going to go over it and try to add some more detail to it, because it's okay. Some of the buildings don't look good at all. But we'll see how it all goes. But it is a fun process, regardless of how challenging some of these projects are. But that's why I do them. It's a kind of mandate for me. I'm always trying to push. So as I was drawing this, I was listening to a podcast with Jordan Peterson and Stephen Fry. Now, Stephen Fry is an atheist. I think he classifies himself as an atheist as opposed to a nihilist or agnostic. This is a side note, but I think that all atheists are really agnostic, or or they're nihilistic. I don't think atheism is as much of a solid element as everything else is. I think that for the most part, atheism is people who are either disappointed that they don't believe in a higher power, or they want to, Anyway, so I was listening to their podcast, and it occurred to me that there are of course, there's different levels of intelligence and academics and all those people who like to discuss this sort of thing. And one thing that struck me was how they talk and how they communicate their opinions across. It's very much I listen to it and I think, okay, you've lost me, because I think people, in high intellectuals tend to sort of explain things in a really convoluted way most of the time, and I don't subscribe to that. I want to be able to listen to someone who can explain things to the lowest common denominator, and I don't, for the large part, I don't think that happens, because there's a sense of ego and pride with it, right? I've got to use big words, and I've got to be impressive. I'm not saying that Jordan Peterson and Stephen Fry have these sort of ethics, if you like, but I do feel like that there is a lot to be said for trying to simplify their explanations. I think it's important because there's a massive disconnect with people who are intellectual and learned against those who haven't a clue. And not only that, but people who don't have the capacity to understand what you're saying in the way that you're saying it. I think that you need to be able to simplify how you explain these things to people. And if I've learned something fairly important in my life, I'm going to convey that, naturally through these kind of mediums. Like, I'm doing commentaries and stuff, but I would like to be able to get my point across so that everyone understands it. And, I'm not saying I'm thick. I'm not saying that you yourself, the listener, is thick. I'm just saying that if you want people to understand philosophy and spirituality and religion and how meaningful these aspects are, then you do have to kind of be a bit sort of approachable and not so verbally alienating, And I had a talk with someone about this a few months back, about how sometimes, I have a real love-hate relationship with synonyms, for instance, because I feel like sometimes there's too many different descriptive words for things. I feel like certain long words are completely sort of unnecessary and aren't really needed and are only really there just to sort of impress. That's the feeling that I'm getting, right? And that might be a naive, narrow-minded way of thinking, but I've always said that if you want people to listen to your argument, it's got to be done in a way that everybody can understand. But I love Jordan Peterson. I have a very fond admiration for Stephen Fry as well. I love his work, his media work that he's done. I've not read any of his books, but obviously I loved him in certain TV shows like, Blackadder and Jeeves and Wooster, and, he was even in an episode of Filthy Rich and Cat Flap by Rick Mayall and Adrian Edmondson of the Young Ones and Bottom fame. It's a series they did in between Young Ones and Bottom, not very highly as highly regarded as the other two, but it's fucking funny nonetheless, and he features in one or two of those episodes. In fact, just one, I think. So I respect Stephen Fry. I respect Jordan Peterson a lot more because there's something about him that feels right. I think he has everyone's best interests at heart, and his beliefs on the very attack on free speech is devastating, and I agree that, you know, we need to stand up for ourselves and say, look, you know, I have the right to offend. And I know that's a sort of, you know, it's not the best way of putting it, but okay, put it this way, right? You're either born a male or a female. Now, there is no in between. Whether you identify yourself as something different than what you are is, of course, a different matter, and there should be no shaming or ridicule or bias or, you know, anything of that nature. If someone feels like they are different inside and they want to act different, then that's completely up to them. If they're a man that identifies as a female, that's absolutely okay. But we live in a world where people should be able to say what they think. If they have a different opinion, then that's their opinion, and you have to accept that. You can't expect the whole world to conform to your wishes, because that's not the way the world works, unfortunately. So if you want to be identified as you know, by a certain term, it's the recipient's right to not respond to that request. That is the very nature of free speech, and you can't change that. And if you tried to change that, that would be tyrannical, and it, you know, should be avoided at all costs, really. But this is what, you know, the youth of today needs to understand, is that you can identify yourself as what you like, but don't expect everyone to conform to your wishes. As in, there are going to be people who disrespect you just for that reason, and that is their right to have that opinion. Just like it's everyone's right to sort of conform to a different religion. If you feel like Christianity is the way or Hinduism is the way, that's your right to believe that. And that extends to, you know, everything else that is related to it. So, you know, I sort of, you know, I had an experience when I was younger where I felt like maybe I should have been a female, and I was very much sort of, you know, a part of me was disappointed that I wasn't. But I mean, you know, we're talking when I was like 5, 6, 7 or 8, you know what I mean? And everyone has those feelings, but, you know, most of us grow out of that, or we just sort of accept the fact that we're not, and we just, you know, we get on with it, you know. And that's the way it's got to be. And, you know, if you want to act on that and you know, wear women's clothing and stuff, that's your prerogative, and that shouldn't be shamed in any way, shape or form. You know, I think that, you know, when we start talking about this, you're starting to bring in things like fashion and stuff like that, and what is practical isn't necessarily fashionable, you know. So there's many aspects to things like this that we don't initially consider, I don't think, and we should. But anyway, we're ploughing on with this cityscape, and we're coming to the point where most of it is put into place now, and really it's just a case of applying some details down the road. But I'm keen to move on from this and start working on Jake's face. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this from the next episode. I may work on some of the cityscape in between episodes, or I may just come back with the thing. With the next stage, basically. I don't know yet. There is a certain danger of getting overwhelmed with the task ahead, and I'd be lying if I said I hadn't felt it this time. And it really is just because I want it to look alright, but at the same time it's hard to kind of replicate detail in a small scale, especially when my pencil refuses to sharpen up to a point. But that's just down to my sharpener. I've got multiple sharpeners and they're all a bit shit, so I'm going to have to invest in a proper desk one. I don't want to do the scalpel thing where I'm shaving off stuff, because that could lead to injury, and I don't really want to go there. I would prefer to just find a really decent sharpener. And yes, we are unfortunately approaching the end of this episode, and I do hope you enjoy what you're seeing, and I hope you enjoy my work. Just to sort of reiterate, I do sketches for free, and you are welcome to request what I do next or down the road. Bear in mind that you must be subscribed to do so, and stay subscribed, really, just because I'm a fun guy, and I produce I hope that I produce meaningful content. It's not just my sketches. From time to time I'll bring out a video which is completely unrelated. The last one was a feature called 2100 AD, the year mankind fell, and it's a short little 3-4 minute piece on say hello to Siri again. It's a 3-4 minute piece on where I think we're headed as a race, and it might be worth your while. Give it a watch if you fancy it. Oh, she's really bless her. I love Suri. She's rubbing against my phone camera at the moment. Rub. Yes, I think it's at this point where I'm like, all right, fair enough. I don't know. I think she might want feeding. But so we've nearly cracked the back of the cityscape, so I am overwhelmingly happy about that. So I'm guessing the next episode is going to be me ploughing through getting the initial skin in place, and then I can start working on his facial features, in particular his beard. It's a very epic beard he's got going on there. Oh God, you gotta love her. She's absolutely brilliant. She'll steal things and put it in her little toy box, and there's lots of wrappers all over the place. Sweet wrappers and bits of tissue paper that she runs around with. She believes that the Christmas tree we've put up is hers, and it's one giant toy box. Now I've pointed the camera down so you can see her better. God bless. Yeah. Anyway, I'll see you guys on the next episode. Have a good one.